The outer bands of Hurricane Lee began to lash Bermuda late Thursday as big surf pounded the island, with the Category 2 storm expected to make landfall on the coast of New England or Atlantic Canada over the weekend. The storm was located about 370 miles, 595 kilometers, south-southwest of Bermuda. It had winds of up to 105 miles per hour, 165 kilometers per hour, and was moving north-northwest at 9 miles per hour, 15 kilometers per hour. Lee was expected to pass just west of Bermuda, prompting forecasters to issue a tropical storm warning for the island. "I cannot stress enough that we must all take this storm seriously," David Birch, acting National Security Minister, said in a press conference. Bermuda's government announced it would shutter its airport at midday Thursday and reopen it Friday. Banks, city parks, and ferry service also were scheduled to shut down Thursday. Public schools would shutter Thursday and Friday. "We don't want 4,000 little people wandering around the country in tropical storm winds," Birch said. Lee is expected to grow in size and keep traveling north as it slowly loses strength in cooler waters. It is forecast to approach the coast of New England and Atlantic Canada on Friday and Saturday and remain a large and dangerous hurricane, according to the National Hurricane Center. A hurricane watch was issued from Stonington, Maine to the U.S.-Canadian border. A tropical storm watch was issued for a large swath of coastal New England from Watch Hill, Rhode Island to Stonington in Maine, including Block Island, Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket. A storm surge watch was issued for Cape Cod Bay and Nantucket. Due to Lee's large size, hazards will extend well away from the center, and there will be little to no significance on exactly where the center reaches the coast, the center said. Hurricane-force winds extended up to 115 miles, 185 kilometers, from Lee Center, and tropical storm-force winds extended up to 240 miles, 390 kilometers, the center reported. It warned of wind, rain and coastal flooding for parts of New England and Atlantic Canada. The storm is approaching as New England struggled on Wednesday with flooding from unusually heavy rainfall unrelated to the hurricane that prompted the governor of Massachusetts to declare a state of emergency. Forecasters warned of dangerous surf and rip currents in Lesser Antilles, the British and U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, the Turks and Caicos Islands, the Bahamas, Bermuda and the U.S. East Coast. The conditions were starting to reach Atlantic Canada. "I understand our community has been through a lot with back-to-back storms," Birch said, referring to Idalia, which spun past the island on Saturday as a post-tropical cyclone and has since dissipated. "I want to acknowledge the fatigue and concern many of you may be feeling right now." Meanwhile, Hurricane Margot was spinning through open Atlantic waters on Wednesday. It was located about 790 miles, 1,270 kilometers, west-southwest of the Azores and had maximum sustained winds of 90 miles, 150 kilometers. It was moving north at 7 miles per hour, 11 kilometers per hour, and is expected to remain over open waters. It is the 13th named storm of the Atlantic hurricane seasons and the 5th hurricane to form. The season runs from June 1st to November 30th and peaked on Sunday. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has forecast 14 to 21 named storms this season. 6 to 11 of those are expected to strengthen into hurricane, and of those, 2 to 5 could develop into Category 3 storms or higher. Hurricane Lee toppled trees and cut power to tens of thousands Saturday as it began lashing New England and eastern Canada, threatening hurricane-force winds, dangerous surf and torrential rains as its center spun closer. Thousands of homes in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick are without power as post-tropical storm Lee moves closer to its anticipated landfall. Lee transitioned from a Category 1 hurricane to a post-tropical storm early Saturday. But CBC meteorologist Ryan Snodden said we're not out of the woods yet. "This is going to be a long day here in the Maritimes," he said. High winds are expected to continue throughout the day and night until they finally begin to let up Sunday morning. Lee is now expected to make landfall around midday in the southwest of Nova Scotia, near Battered Point in the municipality of the District of Barrington. Snowdon says winds remain at Category 1 strength of 130 km per hour near its center and that residents of both provinces should brace for a long day and night. These are sustained winds, really howling, especially along the Atlantic coastline, he said. The storm is moving in faster than expected, says Snowdon. Top wind gusts so far are in the 90 to 110 km per hour range in southwestern Nova Scotia, and between 30 to 60 millimeters of rainfall has fallen in that same area. Nova Scotia RCMP are asking people to stay off the roads as water, downed trees and utility lines are created hazards along the province's Atlantic coastline. Police say people who are driving out to watch the waves are putting themselves and first responders at risk. As of 11:49 a.m. at Saturday, more than 129,000 Nova Scotia Power customers were without power, with the highest concentration in the Halifax area, the province's South Shore, and the Annapolis Valley. Meanwhile, in New Brunswick the outage map lists more than 38,000 customers without power. In a release Saturday morning, Nova Scotia Power said the outages are the result of downed trees and strong winds of up to 100 km per hour in the western part of the province, and up to 90 km per hour in downtown Halifax. More than 600 people, including power line technicians and forestry workers, are in the field today, but conditions are getting worse and in most cases, power won't be able to be restored until the winds recede, said Nova Scotia Power. Especially when winds are above 80 km per hour, it isn't safe for our crews to be up in the buckets, so we focus on assessing damage and restoring power from the ground where possible, Matt Drover, the organization's storm lead, said in the release. NB Power has a team of 700 on standby to help with electricity outages. Nova Scotia Power said Digby, Shelburne and Yarmouth are its biggest area of concern, so crews were sent there in advance of the storm. Maritime Electric, which provides power for PEI, said it had more than 100 people on its team waiting to respond. Yarmouth Mayor Pam Mood says her town is bracing for impact. I think people have battened down the hatches, she told CBC News Saturday morning. Many people in the area work in the fishery, however, and some people braved the early morning wind to go down to the wharf and check on their property. We don't want anybody out on the streets, but this is the mainstay, the fishery. It's right down there and probably the most dangerous territory and they have to check on their livelihoods. The biggest worry, Mood said, is how the wharf will withstand possible storm surges. She added that the fire hall is open for anyone in need of shelter Saturday. All Northumberland Ferries sailings between Wood Islands, PEI, and Caribou on Saturday are cancelled. Bay Ferries has cancelled its Saturday and Sunday crossings between Bar Harbor, Maine, and Yarmouth. Bay Ferries has also cancelled Saturday crossings between Digby and St. John. Marine Atlantic has rescheduled its Saturday crossings between North Sydney and Port Aux Basque to Sunday, weather permitting. Many flights in and out of the region have been cancelled. Anyone with plans to travel should check the status of their flight with their airline. Halifax Transit announced Saturday morning that the MacDonald and Mackay bridges had closed to high-sided vehicles, and buses would be rerouted as required. Ferry operations were suspended as of 10:15 a.m. In a post to social media on Friday night, Public Safety Canada advised people to avoid non-essential travel and conserve their phone batteries as much as possible during the storm. The hurricane center was about 185 miles, 365 kilometers, southwest of Halifax, Nova Scotia, and about 160 miles, 355 kilometers, south-southeast of Eastport, Maine, at 8 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time Saturday. It was moving north at a fast clip of 25 miles per hour, 41 kilometers per hour, with maximum sustained winds of 80 miles per hour, 129 kilometers per hour. Meanwhile, states of emergency were declared for Massachusetts and Maine, the nation's most heavily forested state, where the ground was saturated and trees were weakened by heavy summer rains. There were reports of trees down in eastern Maine, according to Todd Foisey, a National Weather Service meteorologist. The tropical storm warning stretched from Westport, Massachusetts, along Cape Cod and coastal Maine all the way up to Nova Scotia. Cruise ships found refuge at berths in Portland, while lobstermen in Bar Harbor and elsewhere pulled their costly traps from the water and hauled their boats inland, leaving some harbors looking like ghost towns on Friday. 2 lobstermen, one of them Billy Bob Falkingham, House Republican leader of the Maine legislature, survived after their boat overturned while hauling traps Friday ahead of the storm, officials said. The boat's emergency locator beacon alerted authorities, and the 2 fishermen clung to the hull of the overturned boat until help arrived, said Winter Harbor Police Chief Danny Mitchell. "They're very lucky to be alive," he said. Lee lashed the U.S. Virgin Islands, the Bahamas, and Bermuda before turning northward, and heavy swells were likely to cause life-threatening surf and rip current conditions in the U.S. and Canada, according to the Hurricane Center. Parts of coastal Maine could see waves up to 15 feet (4.5 meters) high crashing down, causing erosion and damage, and the strong gusts will cause power outages, said Louise Fode, a National Weather Service meteorologist. As much as 5 inches, 12 centimeters, of rain was forecast for eastern Maine, where a flash flood watch was in effect. But even as they prepared, New Englanders seemed largely unconcerned. In Maine, where people are accustomed to damaging winter nor'easters, some brushed aside the coming Lee as something akin to those storms, only without the snow. "There's going to be huge white rollers coming in on top of 50 to 60 miles per hour winds. It'll be quite entertaining," Bar Harbor lobsterman Bruce Young said Friday. Still, he had his boat moved to the local airport, saying it's better to be safe than sorry. On Long Island, commercial lobsterman Steve Train finished hauling 200 traps out of the water on Friday. Train, who is also a firefighter, was going to wait out the storm on the island in Casco Bay. He was not concerned about staying there in the storm. Ian Hubbard, a meteorologist for Environment and Climate Change Canada and the Canadian Hurricane Center, said Lee won't be anywhere near as severe as the remnants of Hurricane Fiona, which a year ago washed houses into the ocean, knocked out power to most of 2 provinces and swept a woman into the sea. Kyle Levitt, director of the New Brunswick Emergency Management Organization, urged residents to stay home, saying, "Nothing good can come from checking out the big waves and how strong the wind truly is."
Trả nhân viên, giáo viên này khác thứ. Xin thưa anh Thủy, tiền mặt bằng anh quỵt từ năm 2020 đến giờ không trả người ta một xu nào. Người ta trả tống cổ anh ra đường là một. Cái thứ hai nữa, giáo viên và nhân viên của các trung tâm Anh ngữ, giáo viên nước ngoài anh cũng quỵt lương của người ta, có trả người ta không? Người nào ít nhất là cũng 160 triệu, người nào nhiều nhất bây giờ cũng lên cả tỷ. Tôi có đầy đủ chứ không phải là không. Cả mấy bạn giáo viên nước ngoài gửi thông tin cho tôi. Đó. Bây giờ xin thưa quý vị các bạn, anh Thủy không còn cái cơ hội để đi lừa người khác nữa. Thì làm sao mà có tiền? Đó. Còn các cái khoản tiền trước đây anh Thủy rót đi đâu, mang đi đâu thì anh Thủy không nói. Đấy. Thế và vẫn là quý vị yên tâm, chúng tôi sẽ cố gắng khắc phục từ nay cho tới tháng 4 năm 2024. Xin thưa quý vị các bạn, chúng ta mà còn tin ông Thủy nữa ấy, thì đến tháng 4 năm 2024 ấy, chắc là cái nịp cũng không còn nữa, anh thật quý vị. Có cái nhà Thủy còn bán đó, cái biệt thự ở dưới Hà Đông, bây giờ dưới Mẫu Lao Hà Đông á, cũng bán rồi, đứng tên người khác rồi. Rồi cái nhà ở trên khu resort trên Ba Vì cũng đứng tên người khác rồi, không còn đứng tên của Thủy nữa. Rồi chỗ cái chung cư Hoàng Đạo Thúy không biết bán hay chưa, nhưng mà bây giờ là cũng không còn ở đấy. mà có cái xe để đi làm, bần cùng nhất là cái chuyện có cái xe thôi, cũng bán từ lâu rồi, toàn đi taxi. Vậy bây giờ còn cái xác khô. Đó. Đấy quý anh chị các bạn, bây giờ còn mỗi cái xác khô nữa thôi. Anh Hoàng Văn Tân, số tài khoản của em ở trên kênh YouTube, số tài khoản của Thái ở trên kênh YouTube. Anh chị mà có mời cà phê thì cái số tài khoản của Thái trên kênh YouTube, cả địa chỉ email, địa chỉ liên lạc ở trên này. Đó. Cảm ơn anh Hoàng Văn Tân. Đó. Đấy, quý chị các bạn, chúng ta thấy ông Thủy bây giờ ông ấy còn cái gì nữa, còn cái xác khô thôi, chả còn cái gì. Vậy chúng ta còn cái gì để chờ cho ông Thủy ông hứa nữa. Đó. Bây giờ vẫn hứa hẹn. Thật sự ra thì theo thông tin mà Thái nhận được ấy, Thái biết đấy, thì xin thưa quý vị các bạn là bây giờ ông ấy tìm một cái cách hoãn, giãn, ổn, ông ấy chuẩn. Nói rõ quý vị các bạn như vậy. Bây giờ mà các nhà đầu tư êm tai, đấy, nghe mật ngọt trên ruồi, đấy, không còn kiện cáo nữa, rồi các phụ huynh không còn kiện cáo nữa, thì xin thưa quý vị các bạn, ông ấy sẽ chuồn, tìm cách để chuồn. Và tiền khi mà đi lừa được người dân thì Thủy đã chuồn đi nước ngoài rất nhiều rồi. Mà sau lưng của Thủy là cả một cái hệ thống chống lưng cho Thủy, chứ không phải là một mình Thủy làm được cái điều đó đâu. Vậy cho nên là quý anh chị các bạn, chúng ta thấy làm gì có cái chuyện là mặc cả từng ngày một. Đó. Hết hứa hẹn ngày này lại hứa hẹn đến ngày khác, đến bây giờ chốt lại là coi như nó đến tháng 4 năm 2024. Xin thưa quý vị các bạn, Thái chỉ sợ đến năm 2034 quý chị các bạn không nhận được một xu cắt nào luôn, chứ đừng nói là 2024. Đó. Đừng nói là coi như nó đây này, có bác Đặng Văn Thanh đại diện cho nhóm gần 2.000 phụ huynh. Đó. Tôi muốn biết lộ trình phải trả học phí cho chúng tôi như thế nào, đợi đến tháng 4 2024 thì lâu quá. Dạ kính thưa bác Thanh, bác Thanh bác coi như nó nên luôn luôn đặt cho mình cái tinh thần là đến năm 2034 thì sẽ nhận được học phí, mà chắc gì đã nhận được học phí. Đó. Chứ đừng nói 2024 nghe nản lắm. Đó. Quý vị các bạn, chứ không phải là không đâu. Nếu mà đến bây giờ vẫn còn có những cái người, còn rất nhiều cái hình thức mà lừa như là xác Thủy này nhiều lắm quý vị các bạn. Bây giờ con xác khô rồi, cái hệ thống đa cấp ở